You don't need a perfect life to feel happy. You don't need everything to be in order. And you don't have to control all the chaos out there. True happiness doesn't come from external circumstances. It begins within, from how you think, how you choose, and how you repeat the smallest things every single day. I used to believe that happiness would show up when everything was fine, when work went smoothly, when the family was harmonious, when finances were secure. But the more I waited, the more disappointed I felt. Turns out I had misjudged something important. Happiness is not a destination that appears once all problems are solved. It's a capacity to shape how you respond to each of those problems. You might be in a high-pressure phase, heavy workload, piling responsibilities, tense relationships. Yet even so, you can still feel peaceful if you take charge of your habits and your perspective. Science shows that only 10% of your happiness comes from circumstances, your job, your living conditions, your salary, your relationships. 50% comes from genetics, something you can't influence, but the remaining 40%, it comes from how you live each day, how you train your thinking, shift your awareness, and rewire your emotional patterns. That means nearly half of the happiness in your life is entirely in your hands. It doesn't rely on luck, it doesn't depend on others, and it's certainly not a random gift. So why do so many people still feel unhappy? Because they let their minds chase after things they can't control while ignoring the things they can master, like morning rituals, like the way they talk to themselves inside their heads, like whether they see failure as the end or as a fresh starting point. I used to be that way. I chased after a version of happiness society had laid out. Big house, nice car, status. But the more I clung to it, the emptier I felt, until I learned something simple that few people teach you. Happiness doesn't have to come from grand achievements. It comes from how you reset your mind, how you make small choices, and how you choose to look at the world through a different lens, moment by moment. You can start over. No need to move houses, no need to quit your job. Just change how you think about work, about yourself, about others. And that shift doesn't come from one dramatic turn, but from small actions, repeated steadily until they become your nature. A warm glass of water in the morning, a reminder to yourself, everything is happening so I can learn how to grow stronger. A moment of gratitude that today you still have the chance to begin again. You can't change your genes, you can't control other people, but you can train your brain to respond differently to life situations. And when you do that every day, just like brushing your teeth, your brain will learn something powerful. Happiness doesn't arrive later. It arrives the moment you pause, take a deep breath, and choose to live differently. Don't wait for life to stop being difficult to feel at peace, because the challenges will never stop. But how you live amidst those challenges, that is the real definition of someone who understands what happiness truly is. You can start today without doing anything grand, just one clear thought, one calm reaction, one repeated choice, and one simple reminder to yourself, I am creating happiness day by day with my own hands and my own mind. There is a habit that may seem small, but has the power to change the entire way you experience life, and that habit is gratitude. Not the cliche kind of gratitude, not a polite thank you said out of social courtesy, but a deep acknowledgement of every act of kindness, every gentle moment, every small ray of light in what may feel like a dark day. When you practice gratitude, you don't change your circumstances, you change how you view them. And that quite literally rewires both your brain and your entire approach to life. You may feel tired, under pressure, or that life has nothing to offer worth smiling about, but try this. Pause, close your eyes for a moment, and reflect. What have you already had today? A nutritious breakfast, a message from an old friend, a minute of silence where no one interrupted you, or simply the steady rhythm of your breath in your chest. These things are so easy to overlook, but it's that very neglect that traps you in an imagined sense of lack, where you constantly feel that you're not enough, that life isn't good enough, that people don't understand enough, and that you don't deserve happiness just yet. Gratitude is the act of selectively choosing what to focus on. On any given day, hundreds of things happen, and you can choose to fixate on what frustrates you or on what soothes you. When you practice gratitude, you're training your brain to instinctively seek out positive signals like a radar scanning for light, and the result is this. You feel lighter, your sleep is deeper, your heart beats steadier, and your mind clearer. This isn't just a feeling, it's a conclusion supported by numerous neuroscience studies. Your brain doesn't distinguish between an actual experience and a feeling triggered by thought. When you write down 3 things you're grateful for each day, your brain reacts as if you are actually reliving those experiences. And the more you repeat this, the stronger the neural connections associated with contentment, peace, and happiness become. Gratitude isn't a denial of hardship. It's a wise choice not to drown in it. It's an inner voice gently reminding you, even though things aren't perfect, I still have much to cherish. I used to keep a small notebook by my bedside. Every night before I went to sleep, I'd write down 3 small things I was grateful for that day. Some days it was a warm cup of tea, other days the silence of a late night, or a gentle glance from a loved one. These seemingly trivial things, after a few weeks, did something that expensive courses never could. They helped me feel calmer, slower, and more appreciative of what I had once taken for granted. Because the truth is, nothing is truly guaranteed. Not health, not opportunities, not love, not even your very self. If writing isn't your strength, then start by expressing your thanks more clearly in your relationships. A message of appreciation to someone who listened to you, a spontaneous hug for a family member, a moment of recognizing a colleague's effort. These small actions don't just lift others, they also lighten you. And here's the magical part. When you send out signals of gratitude, you begin to attract matching energy in return. You start to see more reasons to be thankful, and that positive circle keeps expanding. Gratitude also has a power few people notice. It soothes the deepest negative emotions, envy, regret, resentment, bitterness. All these emotions thrive when you compare, when you feel robbed, lacking, or unfairly treated. But when you practice gratitude, you affirm, I do have good things in my life. I am nourished. I do still have the capacity to live and create meaning. You shift out of victim mode and return to the role of creator. If you're going through a hard time, it's even more important to practice gratitude, because in pain, your brain easily exaggerates negativity and blurs the positives that still exist. In that very moment, stopping to write down just one thing you still hold on to, that is an act of resistance against despair through a conscious choice. You don't have to appear strong. You just have to remind yourself that something, somewhere, is still on your side, even if you haven't noticed it yet. Gratitude is also powerfully contagious. When you live with a grateful heart, you naturally become more pleasant, more patient, and more compassionate toward others. This not only improves relationships, it helps you build an emotionally healthy ecosystem where you are nurtured both internally and externally. And the most beautiful part is, you don't need any special condition to begin, only to pause, observe more closely, and choose to acknowledge what's there. No one teaches you this in school. No one forces you to keep a gratitude journal. But if you ask anyone who has walked through the darkest seasons of life and still kept their peace, they'll tell you this. It was the ability to notice beauty in the smallest of things that saved them from the dark. Not a miracle, not a dramatic transformation, but a subtle, quiet practice, beginning with a simple phrase, I am grateful for. You can start today. No need to write something long, no need to make it fancy. Just be honest. Write down one small thing and let that one thing lead you into the light. And if you do that every day, something wonderful will happen. You won't just feel happier, you'll become the kind of person who makes others feel that way too. No one is truly happy living in isolation from others. Even the most introverted people, even the souls who cherish silence, still deeply need some form of connection. Not always physical presence, but always the feeling of being understood, listened to, and empathized with. Connection is a deep human need, not a luxury. It's not something you add to life to make it more enjoyable. It's a biological and psychological foundation that determines whether you feel at peace or empty each day. You could be living in a bustling city, interacting with hundreds of people each week, and still feel lonely. That feeling doesn't stem from a lack of people around you, but from the absence of real connection. The difference lies in quality, not quantity. A knowing glance, a brief but sincere word, someone checking in without needing you to explain everything. These things heal far more than any hour-long small talk ever could, because true connection doesn't come from speaking. It comes from feeling that the other person is truly present with you. Your body responds biologically when you connect with someone. Every hug, every shared laugh with a loved one, every moment of feeling understood, your body releases oxytocin, the hormone that makes you feel loved and safe. Your mind relaxes, your heartbeat steadies, anxiety and tension ease, without medication, without any external reason. On the other hand, when connection is missing for a long time, your brain registers it as a kind of crisis. Prolonged loneliness causes neurological harm similar to physical pain. It weakens your immune system, increases your risk of depression, and makes you view the world through a colder, harsher lens. I once told myself, being alone is enough, and tried to be strong, independent, and self-sufficient, to the point of isolating myself from everyone. But the more I withdrew, the more hollow I felt inside. I wasn't short on time. I was missing the feeling of being seen by someone without having to pretend. And when I finally began to open up, even through small gestures, texting an old friend, inviting someone for coffee without any specific reason, quietly checking in on someone, I realized what I had been lacking wasn't success nor recognition, but human connection. There are things you simply can't overcome without someone beside you. Not because they'll fix everything, but because they'll walk with you while you face it. Sometimes someone sitting silently beside you is more powerful than 1,000 clever words. And here's the beautiful truth. When you have someone to lean on, you become stronger. Connection doesn't weaken you. It gives you a reason to stay resilient. Connection doesn't need to be grand. A nod to the security guard, a kind question to a colleague, a moment of listening without judgment. These may seem trivial, but when repeated, they lay the emotional foundation for a deeper life. And you might be surprised to discover, often you can be the one to initiate connection without waiting for someone else to speak first. You can be the one who starts. And with one small act, you warm the space that you and the other person share. If you're feeling distant or lost, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It's simply a signal you need to reconnect with others or with yourself. A book club, a volunteer day, a running group. These aren't just activities, they're spaces for closeness. You don't have to share your whole story. You just have to show up. Gradually, your presence will lead to deeper bonds. And you'll realize that belonging doesn't need to be searched for. It only needs a space to unfold. There's also a kind of connection most people overlook, the connection with yourself. If you don't understand your emotions, if you constantly dismiss your own needs to please others, if you always pretend to be okay when you're not, you are cutting off the inner line that keeps you whole. And when you lose that internal clarity, every external connection becomes fragile. Learn to listen to yourself, to understand what you really feel, and allow yourself to be vulnerable. That's what makes you authentic, and when you're authentic, you attract authentic relationship. One of the most beautiful aspects of connection is its ripple effect. When you live with kindness, when you care without calculation, when you listen to someone with your full presence, you're sending out an energy that inspires others to do the same. You don't need to try to change the world. Just change how you show up in each conversation. From those conversations, you build a more solid world within. If you're searching for happiness, don't just look for quiet places, look for hearts that know how to listen. If you're building a meaningful life, don't just build it with achievements, build it with connection, those invisible threads that are stronger than any scoreboard. And if life feels heavy today, don't bear it alone. Look around. Someone may already be ready to walk beside you if only you'd say something. Happiness is a journey you can't walk alone. Inner peace isn't about how much time you have for yourself, but about whether you can share your presence with someone without needing to protect yourself. And the meaning of life doesn't lie in the question, who am I? But in the unconditional connection with those who remind you, you are not alone. So many people live under the weight of not enough, not successful enough, not progressing enough, not proud enough. They set big goals, envision distant milestones, and wait for the day when everything comes together to finally allow themselves to feel joy, to feel happy. But what they don't realize is that this very delay of positive emotions gradually erodes their drive to live fully. Happiness isn't found in the moment you accomplish something grand. It's found in realizing you are truly moving forward, even just one small step each day. Every journey begins with a single step, yet no one teaches you how to appreciate that very first step. No one tells you that waking up on time, checking off a small task, saying no to a bad habit, those are victories, because society only celebrates leaps. But the people who truly stay steady are the ones who recognize the quiet steps they've overcome. They don't need external validation, they validate themselves. The human brain responds very clearly to goal achievement, even if the goal is so small no one else notices. Every time you complete an intentional action, your brain releases dopamine, the hormone that creates feelings of satisfaction and motivation. That feeling isn't just pleasant, it's a biological signal reinforcing the belief, I can make progress. And the more frequently that positive emotion is triggered, the easier it becomes to form good habits and push through hard days. Happiness, therefore, isn't the final reward. It's the reward you create along the way. I used to be addicted to big goals. Every time I completed a major project, I felt thrilled. But the high faded fast, and I'd fall back into emptiness, scrambling for the next big thing to chase, until I began to notice. The days I felt most fulfilled weren't the ones with big breakthroughs. They were the days I finally did the small things I'd kept putting off. Finishing a journal entry, calling a friend, reading that last chapter. There were no fireworks, no applause, but inside there was a quiet pride, real and deeply personal. Celebrating small wins doesn't mean becoming complacent. It's an act of nourishment. When you allow yourself to feel joy over a small positive action, you replenish the energy to take on harder ones. You don't need to wait for a perfect day. You don't need someone else's approval. You only need to ask, did I do something today worth acknowledging? And if the answer is yes, even if it's just washing the dishes, completing a 15-minute meditation, or staying calm in a tense conversation, that's reason enough to feel satisfied. There's a simple and powerful way to maintain this habit. Each night, before bed, write down 3 small wins from your day. No need to write a long story, no need to overthink it. Just be honest. I didn't give up when I felt like quitting. I spoke the truth instead of avoiding it. I chose to walk instead of scrolling endlessly. Writing it down helps you see clearly you're not stuck, you are moving step by step, and that deserves recognition. You can also create small rewards tied to your good actions. A favorite cup of coffee after finishing work, a beloved song after cleaning up, a quiet 30-minute break after doing something you didn't feel like doing. This is an indulgence. It's about linking effort and reward. That connection teaches your brain to associate positive action with positive feeling, building a loop that sustains your inner strength. What matters most is recognizing. No step is too small to be appreciated. Every small step is a brick, and you can't build a castle if you keep dismissing each brick. The most resilient people are the ones who celebrate even the quietest steps, because they understand that strength doesn't lie in brilliance, but in persistence. Don't let the feeling of not enough rob you of moments that matter. Don't dismiss your progress just because it doesn't look impressive next to someone else's. Comparison kills motivation, recognition nurtures it. And the difference between those who keep going and those who give up is often just one well-timed acknowledgement. I tried. And that alone is something to be proud of. If you feel like you're falling behind, maybe it's not because you're failing, but because you've forgotten to count your own small wins. You're building a journey. Don't wait until it's finished to find it meaningful. Find the value now, in every brick you lay, in every effort you repeat, in every time you write one simple line, "Today, I didn't give up." Happiness doesn't wait at the finish line. It lives in every step you take toward that line. And when you learn to celebrate even the smallest things, you're teaching your heart the greatest truth, that you are alive, you are growing, and you are already enough in this very moment. Your body is not just a vehicle you operate to get through daily life. It is the most intricate foundation you have, where emotions accumulate, where energy flows, and where the earliest warning signs appear when your life begins to drift out of balance. Happiness doesn't just come from clear thinking or positive relationships. It also comes from how you treat your body and your mind. And two fundamental yet often overlooked elements are physical movement and mindfulness. Not complicated, not expensive, but when truly practiced, they can transform the way you live from the root. Movement doesn't mean intense workouts or perfect physiques. It's simply a reminder to your body that you're still alive. When you get up from your chair, when you walk under sunlight, when you stretch your back after sitting too long, when you reach your arms upward as if opening a gateway for inner energy, you're allowing your body to circulate. And this circulation not only improves blood flow, but also activates the nervous system, lifts your mood, soothes stress, regulates sleep, and enhances focus. These biological effects don't show up instantly like a painkiller, but they last far longer than any quick fix if you stay consistent. There will be days when you have no energy to run, no mental space for the gym, but don't confuse working out with moving. A spontaneous dance in the kitchen, a stroll around the block, a deep stretch before you work. These are all forms of movement, and they send a powerful signal to your brain. You're still in charge of your body. You are not consumed by your mood. You are present, you are proactive, but movement is only half the foundation. The other half is mindfulness, the ability to bring your mind back to the present moment. In a world where your attention is constantly fragmented by news, notifications, expectations, and doubts, mindfulness isn't a luxury for those who enjoy meditation. It's an emotional survival skill, a mental capacity that keeps you from becoming lost in your own life. And ironically, you don't need to sit cross-legged on a cushion for hours to practice it. You just need to be truly present in whatever you're doing. When you eat and truly taste each flavor, when you wash the dishes without scrolling through your phone, when you walk and feel your soles connect with the ground, when you listen to someone speak without mentally rehearsing your response. These simple actions, when done with full attention, are mindfulness. And mindfulness helps you slow down, see more clearly, and resist being swept away by chaotic emotions you don't yet understand. One of the simplest yet most effective exercises is conscious breathing. When you're stressed, tired, or scattered, just pause. Place your hand on your chest. Inhale through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for 4. And exhale through your mouth for 4. Repeat 3 times. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, pulling you out of fight or flight and back into self-regulation. This isn't a psychological trick. It's a series of biological reflexes backed by science. When you combine movement and mindfulness, you don't just live healthier, you live more deeply. A slow yoga session, a walk without headphones, a morning spent watching light stream through your window instead of checking your phone. These experiences reconnect you with yourself, something that busyness slowly steals without you noticing. And the best part is, you don't have to wait for free time. You just need the awareness to choose differently. Movement keeps your body strong. Mindfulness keeps your mind clear. And when both become part of your daily rhythm, you build a solid base for happiness. Not the fragile kind of happiness that relies on compliments or goals achieved, but a quiet inner peace, one that doesn't waver with praise, rejection, or failure, because you've learned how to hold your own balance from within. If you're looking for a shift in your life, don't start with a grand goal. Start by walking for 10 minutes every morning. Try drinking a glass of water and focusing only on the coolness touching your tongue. Practice returning to this moment again and again. And soon you'll discover life doesn't need more. It just needs more of you to be fully here. True happiness isn't about how far you've run. It's about whether your feet are truly touching the ground. It's not about how much you've done, but whether you're fully alive in each thing you do. And you'll realize, in each deep breath, each slow step, each quiet pause, happiness has always been here, simply waiting for you to come back and notice it. It's not your circumstances that must change for you to be happier. It's when you shift your perspective that even the most difficult situations can become the raw material for growth. The same situation, one person sees failure, another sees a chance to learn. The same crisis, some collapse, others rise stronger. The difference lies not in the outside world, but in how you interpret it inside your own mind. And it is this mindset that determines the quality of your emotional life each day. You can't control everything that happens, but you can always choose how you respond. Every situation carries a message, a lesson, or at the very least, a nudge to listen more deeply to yourself. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" learn to ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" The second question won't change your reality, but it will completely shift the energy with which you face that reality. The human brain is wired to lean toward negativity. It exaggerates risks to ensure survival. This is a built-in survival mechanism. But if left unchecked, it pulls you into spirals of worst-case scenarios, unnecessary anxiety, and emotional suffering. Transformational thinking is the ability to notice these patterns and consciously choose a different lens, not to sugarcoat, but to reclaim your power over interpretation. When you change the story inside your head, you change the feeling that comes with it. One rejection might lead you to think, "I'm not good enough," bringing sadness, shame, or withdrawal. But if you shift that same experience to, "This is an opportunity to improve and try again," you feel motivated, focused, and ready to act. Nothing externally has changed, but your perspective has, and that changes everything. Transformational thinking doesn't come from reading a few inspirational quotes. It comes from disciplined mental practice. Each time something unwanted happens, pause and ask, "Is there another way to look at this that helps me grow?" You'll be surprised how many of the things that once broke you were really just tests, asking if you're ready to evolve. One of the clearest signs of transformation is the ability to turn adversity into fuel for growth. Instead of complaining after being laid off, they use the time to learn new skills. Instead of blaming after a breakup, they reflect inward and begin to heal. What seemed like loss, when reframed through the lens of learning, becomes a powerful lever that moves them toward a better version of themselves. Transformational thinking does not deny pain. It acknowledges emotion fully, but it doesn't allow emotion to lead indefinitely. You're allowed to feel hurt, angry, wronged, but once you've honored those feelings, you return and ask, "Will I use this energy to shrink or to move forward?" That question alone gives your power back, because you're no longer a victim of circumstance, but the author of your response. Happiness doesn't come from life going your way. It comes from your ability to stay wise, patient, and grounded even when it doesn't. This isn't blind optimism. It's conscious resilience. It's the quiet clarity of knowing you can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. You can begin practicing this today simply by rewriting a story you've been carrying, the one laced with resentment or regret. Look at it through 3 new angles. If you were an outsider, what would you see? If you were a wiser version of yourself, how would you respond? And if you knew this was happening for your long-term growth, what would you choose to do next? These questions shift you from passive to active. And the more often you do this, the more your brain builds new mental pathways, no longer reacting negatively out of habit, but responding with intention. That's when you stop being shaped by your circumstances and instead reshape them through your perspective. No one is happy because they have a perfect life. The happiest people are those who see the imperfection through eyes of gratitude and calm. They don't force life to obey them, but they learn to cooperate with life's flow, using a mindset that is flexible, deep, and appreciative even of detours. If everything feels like it's working against you right now, maybe the world doesn't need to change. Maybe the story you're telling yourself about it does. And when you change that, you'll no longer feel trapped. You won't need a miracle. You'll just need a new question, a different lens, and one clear decision. I choose to see this as a doorway for evolution, not a sentence to stop moving. Nothing drains a person faster than a life without purpose. Being busy without knowing why, striving without a clear direction, this slowly erodes your inspiration for living. A sense of purpose doesn't need to be something grand, but without it, you'll easily lose your way in the whirlwind of expectations, comparisons, and invisible social pressure. A person with purpose doesn't necessarily move faster, but they walk with more certainty because they know why they're moving and what's truly worth keeping. Each morning you wake up, your schedule might already be packed, your responsibilities lined up and waiting. But if you can't connect those tasks to a meaning greater than yourself, you'll start to feel drained for no clear reason. On the other hand, even the smallest things, teaching your child, caring for customers, learning a new skill, can become a quiet source of energy when they're rooted in a clear sense of purpose. Life purpose is the undercurrent that keeps you standing when challenges come crashing in. Some people constantly change goals, chasing new heights, yet still feel empty. That's because goals and purpose are not the same. Goals are short-term destinations. You reach one, then look for the next. Purpose is the foundation, unchanging, even when everything else shifts. When you live for goals, you're prone to burnout from the chase for achievements. But when you live with purpose, you can find fulfillment even in imperfect days. A mother raising her child at home, a doctor tirelessly working in a hospital, a technician quietly keeping machines running, they can all live deeply if they recognize the true meaning behind what they do. Purpose doesn't lie in your job title. It lies in why you choose to do what you do each day. When your reason is clear, you don't need someone to cheer you on. You don't need public approval. You don't need to look impressive. What gives you power is the alignment between your actions and your beliefs, an inner strength no outside force can shake. Finding your purpose doesn't require a dramatic epiphany after a faraway journey. Sometimes it begins quietly, from something that deeply moves you, a moment that makes you want to live differently, or a need in your heart that simply won't be ignored. Some people discover it through pain. Others find it by serving. Others hear it through what first looked like meaningless failure. But once you connect with it, even the smallest effort feels like you're living in alignment with your true self. People who live with purpose tend to be more resilient. They're less swayed by praise or criticism. They recover more quickly from setbacks. They don't need a rush of excitement to keep going, because every task they take on is infused with lasting meaning. And that creates a deep, quiet joy, one not dependent on external circumstances, not dictated by trends, and not easily shaken. And you can start reconnecting with that today. Ask yourself, what makes me feel my life has meaning, even if no one notices? What would I still do without any reward? In tough times, what thought helps me rise instead of crumble? Behind all my daily tasks, is there something bigger driving me? These questions don't need instant answers, but they'll lead you back to inner layers you may have forgotten beneath the rush of life. Some people say they don't have the luxury to live by purpose. They have burdens, responsibilities, practical things to worry about. But those people are the ones who need purpose the most. Because purpose doesn't ask you to abandon your current life. It helps you live it with a wider, deeper vision. When you raise your children, you're not just doing your duty. You're sowing seeds of value. When you go to work, you're not just earning. You're building skills, laying a foundation. When you fail, you're not just losing. You're learning what no textbook can teach. Purposeful thinking doesn't make you unrealistic. On the contrary, it makes you sharper in your decisions. You know what to keep, what to let go. You're not distracted by empty glitter. You become more patient, but also more decisive. You dare to say no to anything that doesn't serve your deeper values. And that's how you create a kind of happiness that doesn't waver, a happiness born from harmony between your heart, your thoughts, and your actions. Every person is born with a reason to exist. Not everyone will stand out, but everyone can live with depth. And when you live each day aligned with what you truly believe, whether slow, simple, or unnoticed, you're leaving behind the most meaningful mark of all. You did not live in vain. And that sense of purpose is what carries you through even the darkest days without ever losing who you are. There's a silent pressure that wears down your inner strength each day, not from the outside world, but from the way you speak to yourself. Every time you make a mistake, fall short, or fail to meet expectations, your instinct may be to respond with self-blame, inner criticism, and quiet shame. You call yourself stupid, weak, inadequate, as if punishing yourself is the price for being imperfect. But the truth is, you can't heal by hurting yourself. No one grows through constant inner scolding, and no one rebuilds strength on soil filled with harshness. Self-compassion isn't about excusing mistakes and repeating them. It's a mature form of strength. The courage to face reality, take responsibility, and also hold yourself gently in moments of pain. When you fail, what you need is not an inner trial, but a spiritual hand that holds you and says, you still deserve understanding, patience, and a chance to try again. Have you ever seen a child fall only to stand up stronger because the adult nearby didn't scold but simply comforted them? Your brain works the same way. When approached with compassion, it doesn't grow weaker. It learns faster, adapts better, becomes more resilient. On the other hand, when you force yourself to change through criticism, what you actually trigger is defensiveness, tension, and a cycle of mistake after mistake. Self-compassion isn't weakness. It's the most effective strategy for rebuilding your core. It helps you rise not by pushing yourself, but by lifting yourself. Many believe they must be hard on themselves to grow, but discipline and self-respect don't come from punishment. They come from deep internal connection. When you understand why you want to become better, who you're doing it for, and that you have nothing to prove to anyone but yourself, people with self-compassion don't give up. They act from love, not self-hate. You can begin practicing self-compassion in the smallest ways. When you're tired and don't meet your plans, don't rush to label yourself lazy. Ask, did I already push too hard in other areas today? When you fail to seize an opportunity, instead of digging into your flaws, listen for what you can learn without humiliating yourself. Speak to yourself the way you would to a dear friend in the same situation, and you'll see beneath the surface of self-blame lies a heart longing to heal, to be comforted, to be seen. Self-compassion also helps you escape the dangerous trap of defining your worth by achievement. When you attach your value to results, you'll only feel good enough when you succeed at something big. But your worth isn't conditional on your success. You are worthy even when learning, stumbling, struggling, What's truly frightening isn't failure. It's believing you don't deserve love simply because you haven't achieved something significant. The more you demand perfection from yourself, the more you create an invisible gap between who you are and who you think you should be. You begin to live as if constantly performing, constantly proving, constantly pushing. And when you fall short, you retreat into silence, shame, and self-isolation. But if you accept this truth, that everyone has been clumsy, wrong, hurt, you open a door to inner freedom, a door of compassion, where you can sit with yourself without fear. Neuroscience has shown that when you meet yourself with gentleness and understanding, your brain activates the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for clarity, calmness, and strategic decision-making. In contrast, harsh self-criticism triggers the amygdala, the center of fear and fight-or-flight responses, making it harder to focus, easier to repeat mistakes, and more emotionally depleted. Compassion isn't just a spiritual ideal, it's a neurological tool for recovery and proper growth. Self-compassion is also the foundation of kindness toward others. When you stop judging yourself, you become less harsh with the people around you. When you learn to forgive yourself, it becomes easier to open your heart. No one can love deeply without first learning to love themselves without conditions. And when you deny compassion to yourself, you'll often seek others to fix, understand, or tolerate the wounds you haven't healed. Self-compassion doesn't make you soft or undisciplined. It makes you someone mature enough to nurture themselves from the root. You stop driving yourself with inner whips and begin lighting the path ahead with conscious awareness. And those who live this way are truly strong because they don't act from reaction, but from intention. You can start right now, no perfect setting required. Place your hand on your chest whenever you feel lost, tired, or ashamed, and gently remind yourself, I am learning, I am healing, and I deserve to walk beside myself with gentleness. These words won't change your circumstances, but they will change how you rise and continue your journey. You can't move forward if you're still carrying emotional boulders from the past. Anger, resentment, regret, guilt. Each repressed emotion is a silent weight that drains your life energy day after day. Many people believe they're exhausted from overworking, but the truth is they're depleted by holding on to too much inside. Letting go isn't giving up, nor is it weakness. It's a refined art of maturity, having the courage to recognize what no longer serves you and choosing to walk away with conscious awareness. There's a deep, unreleased emotions always find a way to express themselves through the body. Unexplained headaches, muscle tension, insomnia, stomach aches, weakened immunity. You can medicate the symptoms, but unless you address the root, the emotions stuck within, you'll always feel like you're running from yourself. On the other hand, when you learn to let go with intention, your inner energy is naturally released. And the beauty is you don't need to do anything grand. You just need to pause, acknowledge what you feel, and be brave enough to set it down. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means accepting that you can't change what happened, but you can change how it continues to affect you. When someone hurts you, you have every right to feel pain. But if you hold on to that pain indefinitely, you're letting them control your emotions and energy without even knowing it. Forgiveness isn't for them. It's a gift you give to yourself. The gift of freedom. There are things you need to release not because they were bad, but because they no longer fit. An outdated dream that no longer stirs your heart. A relationship filled with tension. A lifestyle that once suited you but now holds you back. If you cling to them out of habit or fear of loss, you limit your own growth. A tree cannot grow without shedding its old leaves. Neither can you. Every time you let go, you allow yourself to be reborn, to live lighter, more honestly, and more closely aligned with who you really are. But letting go doesn't come from avoidance. It comes from confrontation. You must dare to name what you're holding on to. Dare to face the things that hurt but you've long ignored. Dare to admit you're tired of pretending, of upholding an image that no longer feels true. Only when you are radically honest with yourself can you release what needs to go, not with regret, but with gratitude. This was part of my journey, and now I choose to let it go. Many fear that